I was one of the few black girls for a while growing up.
Hi, this is Nicole Glass, and welcome to Creating Your Own Reality podcast. Welcome back to my show, Creating Your Own Reality podcast, with your host, Nicole Glass. Thank you so much for coming back and tuning in and sticking this out with me. I have a really special guest today, Constance Kellum, someone who is in my life and someone I admire very, very deeply. Constance is a community activist. She is a mother. She is an entrepreneur. And she is constantly creating her own reality, not only for herself, but for the people around her. She is a force to be reckoned with. She is helping members of her community within prisons, people who don't have voices for themselves, within the homeless shelters. She is also a foster parent, and she is someone I look up to and I admire and I respect a lot. So please help me welcome Constance Kellum onto my show. Connie, hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I really want people on the show to get to know you and the person you are. So can you please tell us about yourself? I already know, but I want to share you with the world.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. That is so appreciated. I'm just a basic person. I think I just love people. I just love people. My mission is to just leave a footprint on this earth before I finally go on home and be with the Lord. So my footprints and statements of love, treating people the way I want to be treated, giving what I never had. I later got it in life, but I didn't have that. I didn't have that warm hug from across the distance. I didn't have that conversation with a mother like I should. You know, I had a good mom in my life. Please don't get me wrong, but it was where I couldn't talk like I can talk now. I wasn't able to get answers that I needed, and now I just really speak. I want them, I speak. I get them, and I try to respect people as I say what I say. I make try not to make sure I do or say the wrong thing.
Well, how did you get that energy and find that within yourself when you said you didn't receive the warmth that you needed?
It's crazy, and I'm kind of glad you asked that. Getting that energy growing up in the neighborhood of Camden, I always could not stand bullies. I just couldn't stand them. And some of the people I hung with in my neighborhood, they were always bullied by bullies that were in the neighborhood, but I was never afraid of them. I didn't know how to show them I wasn't afraid. So if I'm with somebody that is afraid and they bothered them, that was my chance. And I used to just be like, come on, walk, don't be scared. Go to the corner store. You can get what you want. Nobody's going to take it. And when those bullies, they always was watching us. When we wasn't even thinking about them, they would come out. Mainly two sisters. They had these two sisters that used to do it all the time. And we would hope that they didn't come out because I knew I wasn't afraid to fight, but I didn't know if I could fight. And I just knew I wasn't going to keep letting them take our stuff and beating us up. See, back in the day, you had these food stamps. And when you went, you had to take the book with you. So whenever you had to go to the store for your mom, you got to take the book. And I had to take them other food stamps back. And there was a lot of times I didn't make it home with them because they would beat you up and take them. And then I just made my mind up. They're not taking them no more. We're going to go home and just keep walking. Don't say nothing to nobody. And when they came out, wham, boom, bam, I did it.
So you've been fighting your whole life.
Yes,
that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
So, but what amazes me about you is that you don't just fight for yourself and your family, you fight for others. Now, I've heard you on the news when you started your protest, protesting the conditions of the Camden County jails. And oftentimes, our communities, sometimes we forget about the people in prison. So can you, expand on your role in that?
I was with a friend of mine one day, and her son called her on the phone, and he was also in the Camden County Jail. And she's standing over there crying, tearing and crying. And I said, what's the matter? She said, my son. He said, Mom, please don't let me die in here. Mom, please don't let me die in here. So I said to her, Gladys, what's going on? She said, He's in jail. I called the county. Everybody up there is sick. They got them on lockdown. They in rooms with no clean laundry. They have buckets sitting outside the cell that with a rag in it, and they are to take this bucket, this rag, and use it to wipe the cell down whenever they could. But he had a guy that was in his cell that was, getting sick, vomiting and things of that nature, and it just got messier. So I said, no, there's no way. I said, well,
When was this? What phase of the pandemic?
this was around the time of the pandemic. It was a little before Thanksgiving. It was
Okay.
like maybe 2 weeks before the Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
But it had got, that conversation didn't sting me at the time. I still didn't stop because I was actually going to Florida in a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
But the day before I went to Florida, I went to go put some money on a book to my husband at the county, and I come out and there was a young lady. I found out later her name was Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually having words with the guards about her son being there and the conditions he was living in.
Mm.
And I stopped and I said, sweetheart, please don't argue with them. I said, please don't argue with them. They're never going to hear you like that.
Mm.
I said, I have been told and I've been ignoring it. I really, really didn't think it was as bad as it was. I said, but I promise you I'm going on a little trip tomorrow, but I'll be back in like 3 days and we're going to get back to this.
Mm.
But the very next day, I understood that Miss Ryan had a march outside the county jail before I got back. I didn't know how serious the march was because I really didn't hear it get where it should have got, where it ended up getting.
Mm-hmm.
So I come back and here I go again. You kept hearing the phone calls. You kept getting the phone calls. Please check on us. They were taking the tablets from the inmates. The inmates were trying to reach out on tablets, letting them know what they were going through. They took the tablets from them so they couldn't call out. I was like, wow. I call up there and they told me it was HIPAA. I couldn't ask about my husband. I couldn't ask
What's
about...
HIPAA for people who
HIPAA
don't know?
Well, HIPAA is a law where you discuss people's medical condition, medical records.
Mm-hmm.
But HIPAA is being used to me as a stronghold word being used for almost any and everything.
Mm-hmm.
HIPAA is not any and everything. It's a discussion of your medical records.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I wasn't asking about no one's medical record. I was asking about an individual person. I said, I called. I was like, I haven't heard from my husband in so many days. And the last I heard, there was a virus going around.
Don't you have
there.
visitation?
No visitation.
You had no visitation?
No, you didn't have visitation. Visitation was closed down due to the coronavirus, the pandemic that was going on.
So they were trapped?
Totally trapped. They would only give them the tablets when they wanted them to have it. But there was one gentleman who never turned in his tablet, or they must have never took it from him, whatever. But he kept calling out. He just kept calling out. And he called out, and the parent contacted me and told me that she was afraid her son was going to die in jail. So I said, man, please. The first thing I knew how to do was pray. Please, let's pray. Let's ask God for a voice. Let's ask God for help. I know he'll do it. I said, I don't know if you trust him, but I totally trust him. And I know he'll do the impossible. And we did that. And immediately those voices got stronger. The crowds got stronger. The people got stronger.
Are you talking about the protests?
The protests. That's when it got
How'd
stronger.
you get that together? How did that occur?
I called a friend, friend named Tawana. Tawana, I called her and I spoke to her about it, and she didn't hear me. She heard me, but she didn't hear me. She didn't respond to me. And then about 3 weeks later, she called me and said, sis, you hear what's going on at the county jail? I said, I've been telling you for the longest. I've been mentioning this to you for the longest, what's going on, and I'm not going to give up. At that point, I was already calling the county. I was calling the police administration. I called everybody that's on that list. Anybody, the courts, nobody answered, of course, because there wasn't a lot of people there working. But I left messages every which way I could. And when she finally said, listen, we're going to get together tonight. I believe that was on a Wednesday night. We all got together and we met down on Broadway at a place that she has down there. And the parents showed up and the son called. At that point, Tawana pulled out her phone And we began to ask him. I was talking at the time. I said, listen to me. I want to help you. I said, but I cannot help you with my voice. I'm not the inmate. So what I want to do, I want to record you. Do you mind if I record you so that we can help you?
You got an inmate on
Somebody
recording?
Yeah, we got him on recording.
Wow.
We end up using her phone, and she just hit record, and everything that was said between one phone to another, it picked it up. So I finally passed the phone to Tawana, and she asked questions, and that was all recorded. And that's when we rang out to April Saul, which was the news.
I don't think people understand. In the beginning of this pandemic, so many of us were scared. So many of us were in our houses, trapped, thinking about ourselves. And so many of us forgot about a population that was trapped inside with their family couldn't visit them. Their friends and family couldn't even speak to them, I think, for some moments all across the country. This is not just localized to Camden County, but this was happening all across the country. People were panicking, but they also forgot. And it was people like Constance Kellum. I call her Connie because we're close friends, but Constance Kellum, who were out in the streets, who cared because her loved ones were in there. The people with fathers, remember we were talking just before this episode.
Yes.
The people with kids and mothers and sisters and brothers, they were the ones suffering.
Yes. Well, one of the gentlemen asked me, he said, I have no siblings to look out for me. He said his mother was long gone. He didn't know where his father was, and his grandmother had took and got sick. He said, do you mind if I mail you my information? Whatever you can do to help me from there. I said, I'm not an attorney. I will never look at it, but I promise you, I just will not let your voice go unheard. I said, I promise you that. I promise you that I will make as much noise as possible because you're in there for a reason, for whatever situation you're in there for. I didn't even really need to know that, but he's in jail for whatever reason. That didn't stop him from being somebody's loved one. You know, he told me he had a couple children. He's a father. He's a friend of many. He's a family member. He's human, point blank, he's human. And no way that we could just leave our loved ones in there to suffer or not get help. That's just like, we don't even leave animals outside to freeze to death. So why are we going to leave our loved ones in a jail to live in those type of humane conditions? They definitely was no doubt about it. We have him on tape saying he had the blue mask, the disposable ones, for like 6.5, 7 months. By the time he was arrested, that was the first mask he was given. And he had never been changed. And he said that
they never got any other mask? They got
One mask?
One
For mask.
How many months?
Like 6, 7 months.
Wow.
I asked him, I said, are you sure about the 6, 7 months? He said, ma'am, I'm definitely sure. I say 6, 7 months because I'm right in the middle of 6.5 months. In another 2 weeks, it'll completely be 7 months. So I'm just counting it 2 weeks ahead of time because I don't know if I'm going to get help.
Was coronavirus, it wasn't just in our streets and in our homes and being exposed across the world, but you're also saying there might have been a exposure in the prisons? It
was definitely an exposure in the prison. We were definitely told, and it is not hearsay, it's a factor, that half of their guards were out, that the county guards were using other people to help them. Like the county might have the county cops that work with the county, the metro cops that work on the street. The county was helping the metro because half of the metro police were out with coronavirus. Everybody was sick everywhere. So everybody was tapping in to help this one and help that one. They're helping each other as officers, but who's helping the inmates? You know,
are you saying that were they taking it in? Were the officers bringing in the virus inside the prisons?
Well, it was known that we heard from officers, period, that there was a party that one officer had. They hit the newspaper.
A party.
They had a party. And
during the pandemic.
During the pandemic, they had a party. And this party just caused this virus to go crazy, and it was brought into the jail.
So what I'm hearing from you is not only were the prison mates living in inhumane conditions. But the pandemic was brought in by the guards and by police officers who represent the state and the county government. And so the government was bringing in the virus into these prison populations and then not taking care of them and not protecting them and not giving them adequate care.
Correct.
That's what I'm hearing from you. And I'm also hearing that the families had a hard time representing and being a voice for their loved ones inside.
Oh, definitely. When I showed up that day, believed to be a Wednesday, Miss Ryan were like talking to a guard, but at high pitched voice. He was yelling at her, screaming at her, like, and he actually came out of his mask to say what he had to say. And that's when I said, "Excuse me, miss, please. This is not the way to do it." And she came to me. She was in tears. And she said, "But you don't understand. My son is in here." She had her grandchildren with her. And I said, "Sweetheart, you're not alone. I just want you to know you're not alone. And we're going to help you. We're going to do it as a group. There's no one set thing. There's no, I may be speaking with you today and I appreciate it, but it's not just an I, it was a us. It was a us that did it. It was other people, parents, grandmoms, everybody started coming out. And people would get in their cars and just bring everybody out, whole signs. One person made like 20 different signs. We had people from Delaware that their loved ones were in the county jail in Camden. And then come to find out as we were going on, it was Cumberland County being mistreated, Gloucester County being mistreated. It went much, much further.
So this wasn't just a Camden County issue.
No, not at all.
And were there any deaths that were reported during this time?
Well, there was told that there was an inmate at the Camden County Jail that was taken out to the hospital, and all the other inmates said he never came back, so they don't know what happened to him. They can only assume that he passed. They said he was really ill when he was taken out, but he never came back, so they really don't know what happened to him.
And it wasn't until your protest, it wasn't until families showed up in mass, and it wasn't until news crews started noticing.
That's right.
And they started reporting on these issues that was help given.
Oh my goodness, help was given, clean laundry was given, brand new laundry was purchased. We started hearing that they were eating better because they were at one point for like 2 weeks, they were getting cold sandwiches, just totally cold sandwiches, no hot food. We were hearing about that. The only way they would eat if they had money on their book to eat. And me, again, I just would hear that maybe a young man didn't have nobody to put money on his books. I would say, listen, just get his name, give me a number, I'll give him $40. I'll give him $30. And I put money on quite a few people's books. I don't know these people. It didn't have to know them. You know, extended family is extended family. That means if you're in trouble, if we can do anything, then let's help out. And that's basically what I did. And it's natural. It's okay. It's okay to bless somebody. It's okay to help somebody because you never know when that help is needed in return.
But I'm so happy that they had someone like you and community members to stand up for them. But is it your responsibility to make sure that the conditions of the prisons are okay? Or is it the responsibility of our politicians, and our political leaders and our governor?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
And the fact that you had to take time out of your busy schedule, mother of two, we just talked about it, entrepreneur, we just talked about in the beginning of this episode, you do so much for your community. On top of that, you felt that you needed to step out of your role, your everyday role, especially with your kids being at home and having to learn from the computer and all the transitions that you were going through in the middle of the pandemic, just like everybody else. You decided that you had to make the prison population a priority.
The whole concept to the thing is to make this system embarrassed enough to know you got human beings living in there like that, and maybe you guys will step up to the plate and help them. And guess what? It started working. This thing called life, it's not about just living. You ain't live until you done something. And I don't believe you even done something. It means do something free heart, wholeheartedly. Just do something out of love. That's when you know you truly lived. That connection with me, I'm loyal like that. Always been like that. To know me is to love me. You know what I mean? Do they like me all the time? No, of course, but that's fine. But my thing is this, You know me, I'm very loyal. I'm very trustworthy. I ain't doing nothing to hurt nobody, especially if you ain't doing nothing to me. Do I bite back? Sure I do. You know what I mean? Do I have structure? I believe that that order was put in the Bible a long time ago. Christ got structure. Christ got orders. You know, God did it better. He gave commands. I'm just saying the word structure. In order to help somebody, sometimes you just got to open up your mouth, show up your face, show up outside the county, get a table, get your chairs, put on an extra layer of warm clothes. Did it. Put boots on. I used to have in the back of my trunk, I had all kinds of gloves, scarves, hat, pass them out to people. Here you go, give out masks, gloves. And that's the way we got along. We had to put money together, buy donuts, coffee. We made it happen out there. And making it happen helps some people.
I remember a picture of you walking down the street. I don't know if it was a picture or video, but the inmates from the windows.
Amen. Somebody signed me. They have a way of spelling the letters of the alphabet. And the reporter said to me, Connie, what is she saying? And I rolled my hands and asked her to do it over. And she did it again. And the sign said, please help us. And I wrote back to her, we got you. We here. We got you. And she just started banging on the thing, throwing her right hand up in the air. And that's a way of saying yes, yes, yes. And all I could do is say, we got you.
Connie, what makes someone like you, what makes you care about, taking time off work, showing up for your people, showing up for your community, and creating a different reality? Because this is no joke. This is the government we're talking about. This is the county jail. This is, people with money. These are people with power. These are people who can, make your life miserable. So what makes you self-sacrifice like that? I really want to ask you.
Wow, I'm kind of glad you asked that, because the whole time I was out there, I never thought about how miserable they can make my life. All I thought about, if I can save one, just one, how much greater I will feel inside. Having someone to speak for you and stand for you is something I didn't have as a child. I always had what we called, I guess, love, and we had a roof over our head, and, we had all that. But I could never tell you what it feels like to be sent to a corner store 3-4 times a day, and you got to fight your way to the store, and you got to fight your way back. That fight never went away. I'm 57 years old, and that fight never went away. So I'm saying that to say that fight gets to the point where, what if I was in a situation where I couldn't stand for myself? So I put my little heart in their place. At the point you're locked up, you're in a place you can't get out. Now you can't do it. Now you're no longer tough. Male, female, whoever in there. They no longer can speak for themselves. I just put myself in their place and speak for them. And what makes me do it is just love. Just why? Why don't we do it? Why don't we help people? Yeah. Why don't we love people? Why don't we go out our way? It's a world, and it's a short period. We only here for a minute. So impact. It's an impact. Like I said, my footsteps won't be hard to follow. I leave a footprint on this earth that somebody else can pick up. And that there, I get a little sensitive, because just to know the truth about what I feel on the inside and what I'm speaking about, oh God, it's just hard to hold back, because if you follow my footsteps, you will find that all you're doing is blessing somebody.
And Connie, that is why I needed you on my show, because you don't just create a reality for yourself being an entrepreneur. You create a reality for others. And in the middle of while this pandemic was raging, in the middle of while people were scared, locked up at home, angry and sad and worried for themselves and their family, you were out here fighting for people in the Camden County jails. You were out there fighting for them to have more masks, to have clean laundry. You were fighting for their voices, which were not heard, which were not cared about by the government. You were fighting for people who could not fight for themselves, and you wanted to create a different reality, because you said, this is inhumane, this is not right, and I don't care if the county doesn't care about them, but I care about them. And that is why that you inspire me. And I'm so happy to have you on the show. And thank you so much for coming.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Awesome.
All right, guys. I just want to take some time to say thank you for listening to Constance Kellum and myself here talk. And if you liked this type of content, I'm going to need you to like and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button down below. Comment if you feel like you have something to add to the conversation. Share to bring awareness to issues like this. And don't forget that we will be creating a GoFundMe to support Constance Kellum as she is a trailblazer within her community and to support the Camden County Jails. Thank you so much.